In this video essay, we'll have a look at a serious game created by Mike Ren called Hazy Dayz, a game that tries to tackle the air pollution issue in China. The game is out on itch.io and is free to play. It hit the online platform in January of 2016, but is still being supported and spread across different outlets. The game has already been covered by multiple game papers like Rock Paper Shotgun, Alpha Beta Gamer, On Serious Games and Killscreen. In this essay, I want to put the focus on the cognitive behavioral game design framework and analyze how Mike Ren expresses his goals through different mechanisms to facilitate the enjoyment of the game while still learning about the situation that is still going on right now in China. The game follows Jael Feng, a young schoolgirl who is about to visit her grandmother for Chinese New Year. Over the course of 7 days, players control her breathing as she faces increasing levels of pollution in the city. The game tries to humanize the air pollution issue in China. Mike Ren, who lives in China, decided to create this game to put into perspective what it feels like to breathe in smog. Because China's air pollution levels are constantly covered in the media, the people get desensitized to the news being spread, and with this game, Ren wants to make the problem more relatable. By promoting the awareness of the problem, the game tries to go a different route to solve air pollution in China. As the game tells players in the end screen, air pollution is not caused by the people, but because of economic models chosen by companies and policymakers. Please share this game and help start the conversation. This is a global issue, and by growing international and local awareness, authorities will be pressured to invest more into fixing the air pollution. By whom and for who is this game? The game is of course made by Mike Ren, but who is Ren targeting this game for? Probably the people of China and people in other countries facing the same air pollution issues as the Chinese people do. But if everyone in China already knows about the problem, why bother making the game? Well, that is because Ren tries to target an entirely different group to play his game. Namely people outside of China who can influence the commercial models and policies made by politicians and companies. The nice thing about this target group is that it is basically everyone in the Western world who has access to a PC, a Mac or an iPhone, which you need to play this game, and that is a lot of people. One thing Ren did a great job at is keeping the game short. In its entirety, the game takes no longer than 5 minutes to complete, which is great because people don't have much time these days to play games for very long. You might even argue that 5 minutes is too long, as our attention span is only 0.2 seconds before we decide if something is worth investing our time in or not, but more on that later. Now on to the cognitive behavioral game design. In cognitive behavioral game design, we don't want to put the learning experience before the enjoyment of the player. We need to find a way that we can express the knowledge and our goals, etc., in a way that still facilitates the enjoyment process. Ren did this quite well if we analyze his game using this model. Ren is able to very clearly convey the purpose of the game, the hardships faced by the people in China because of air pollution. The goals are to promote awareness of this problem with the people playing it, and you can really get the feeling of hardship when you don't succeed at a level where the outcome expectations of having all the pollution stick to your lungs are realistic, in that Jael Feng has to go to the hospital as she has a hard time breathing because of her polluted lungs. The in-game goal and encouragement is to visit your grandma after surviving 7 days before Chinese New Year. This gives the player a very real goal to work towards, and the barriers being thrown up by the game, which is the pollution, fits perfectly with the hardship faced by the actual people in China. Next, we need a way of expressing this knowledge or goal through a mechanism to be able to facilitate the enjoyment of the player. Ren does this very nicely. Because his target group can either be people in China or outside, he keeps his visual style mostly free of text. In the beginning of the game you get to choose your language, but this only impacts the message given to you at the end of the game. Both players have the exact same experience otherwise. Another place Ren really hits the spot is with the narrative of the game. Because the player can connect with the story of a 10-year-old girl so easily, the player is able to immerse himself into the game. This eventually creates comments like, "But the uneasiness and the anxiety that as a player you will experience taking care of this little girl's health, it is cruelly real." Finally, to really teach the player what it feels like to walk around in China, the logic and patterns used in the game are made in such a way that it's quite hard to breathe fully in or out, because you need to manage your oxygen and pollution. This creates the feeling of constantly suffocating a little bit, which is exactly what Ren wants us to feel when walking around in China. Finally, we should be teaching the player about a topic, but because it's a game, it should be enjoying as well. So how does Ren facilitate this enjoyment process? By creating a game with a cute aesthetic and a story of only 5 minutes, Ren engages the player quite easily. This is not a game that will take you hours to complete, so do we need very fancy visuals? No. But do they have to be interesting enough for us to take a closer look? Yes, and they are. The narrative also helps us to immerse the player into the game world and get a real feeling of a challenge, which brings us to our next point. Challenge. The reason you want to continue playing this game is not just because you want Xiao Feng to get to her grandma. The mechanics are challenging, yet simple, with the very clear, meaningful choice you as a player get. By breathing in and out at the right moment, you're easily hooked because you want to master this mechanic, so you don't feel like Xiao's lungs, or even your own lungs, are suffocating. Flow and persistence are the last two elements of the enjoyment process. This is where Ren's game falls short. Because it's a 5-minute experience and the game is a linear story spread across 7 days, the player doesn't learn any new mechanics or gets another challenge. This means that the game doesn't have a very high replayability value. But this might be a good balance between a game that is short but not so long that the player never learns about the actual lesson the game is trying to teach the player. So, at the end of the day, Mike Ren's Hazy Dayz is a very thought out 5-minute game experience that is able to promote awareness for the issue of air pollution in China in a completely different way that others are doing it right now. Following the cognitive behavioral game design model, it is easy to see why this seemingly small game has attracted so many game papers and people to play it. For now, thanks for watching and goodbye.